You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and before I get to the Trifecta, I just want to clear something up. The reason that I didn't talk about MLB's Arizona plan or the NHL's North Dakota plan was because there's so many moving parts to that I feel like that's a fluid situation, and it's not something that can really be broken down at this point. It's just speculation. You know, we have no idea if they're going to do it. It seems like the worst of the coronavirus in this country, I don't want to say is past, but it seems like we're on the right track towards getting back to some semblance of normalcy. The CDC may ease social distancing rules soon. I know that the leading virus model said that the U.S. is on the right track, so, you know, I just don't think it's worth talking about yet. I don't want to repeat the same things over and over again. That's a promise I made to you at the beginning of this show. That I'm not going to do that. If it's approved, if it's set in stone that that's what's going to happen, I'm going to talk about it. But as of right now, I don't think it's right to. The one thing I'll say is, and this goes for baseball, do not compromise the integrity of the games. It's been 9 innings forever. Now you're going to make them 7? We're going to play 7-inning doubleheaders to try to cram in as many games as possible? Do you have any idea what that's going to do to the record books? I mean, that is a terrible idea. That is a famously bad idea. Quite honestly, I don't see what's wrong with just playing a shortened season this year. That's it. Bite the bullet. It's unfortunate. No one loves baseball more than me. You think that I don't want as much baseball as possible? Of course I do. But I don't want to compromise the integrity of the games, and some of these ideas that they're throwing out, you know, let's just paint everybody purple and have them play on the moon. I mean, come on. I don't even mind the idea of playing all the games in one state for the foreseeable future. That's fine. Just don't alter the rules. You want to have designated home and away teams? Of course. But none of this 7-inning doubleheader nonsense. Baseball, I think, is going to start up at some point in time, either late May, early June. Realize these guys need time to get into game shape. This isn't like the NHL or the NBA, where they were already playing meaningful games. We were still in spring training. There are a lot of players that are not in game shape right now that need to get there, or else you're going to have a lot of injuries on opening day. Now, I don't mind pushing the World Series back to deep in November. If you even want to do December, I understand that that's rough, but If that's what needs to be done, so be it. I understand it's going to make recovery time a lot more of an issue, and you're going to have a shortened off season, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. These are uncharted waters, and we have to do the best we can while maintaining the integrity of the game. As for hockey and basketball, I think the only thing that you're going to see is a shortened playoffs. I do not want them to resume the regular season. The only thing that I could see is some kind of a play-in tournament for the final playoff spots. I know in the NBA, the Eastern Conference was pretty much set. You know, we knew what teams were going to be in it. Granted, we didn't know the order of the teams, but for the most part, we knew the teams. So I say we just end the regular season and go right into the playoffs. Even if we need shortened playoffs, that's fine. I do not like the idea of playing deep into the summer. You're giving these guys no chance to recover, and then you're pushing back the start of next season. So 2 seasons are going to be affected by this, not just 1. What the NBA and NHL need to figure out is when is the latest they can play without compromising the health of the players. You know, let's say that Game 7 of the NBA Finals is Labor Day, which is something that's been rumored. You can't start late October. So just set a date where this is the latest we can go without compromising the integrity of next season. I don't understand why 2 seasons need to be affected by this. Does it hurt that there's not going to be a champion this year, or there may not be a champion this year? Of course. But there's no reason why 2 seasons need to be affected. Just the 1. I mean, that's happened before. Baseball has had no champions. Hockey has had no champions. Football hasn't. Basketball hasn't up to this point, but we need it. It's just that simple. I don't like the idea of affecting next season because of this. And the same thing with hockey. The same thing applies for hockey. I don't know when their set date is. I know for the NBA it's Labor Day. I don't know how you can have hockey in July and August. I don't know how that ice is going to work. Moreover, those stadiums are probably booked. So you'd have to tear down whatever's there and then put fresh ice on top of it. Or below it, whatever. This isn't the NBA where you just have to put down a hardwood court. You have to freeze water for hockey. I don't think it works. The bigger issue, though, assuming that the logistics of it can work, I don't even mind playing all the games in North Dakota. That's fine. I really have no problem with that. I have no problem with neutral sites. I just have a problem with compromising the integrity of the game. Fortunately, it doesn't seem like hockey's doing that. The one issue the NHL is going to have if they end the season early is the bubble teams. There were a lot of teams pushing for a playoff spot. The Islanders, the Rangers even, and the Panthers were all knocking on the door. You want to have some kind of a play-in tournament there? I don't know how it would be done, but I don't mind that. Again, I'm not sure exactly how it would work, but I think it would be kind of cool. I think it's the only fair way to go for the bubble teams. And even in the Western Conference, too. You've got teams like the Predators, the Canucks, the Wild, even the Coyotes were all in the running for a playoff spot. You want to have some kind of a play-in tournament there? Again, I don't know how it would work exactly, but I think it's the only fair way to do it. What you may end up needing to do is, instead of having best of 7s, have best of 5s or best of 3s for each of the rounds. And that goes for both sports, hockey and basketball. Again, there's no reason why 2 seasons need to be affected by this. Just set a demarcation line for just this year to be affected. Have your plans laid out for how you want to resume the season. Those players may even need some tune-up games. We may have a mini preseason in hockey and basketball. Give the teams a couple games to get going. It'll be like the Pro Bowl, though. No one will touch each other. I think that's the best way to do it. I don't mind the neutral sites. I just don't want next year to be affected, and I don't want the integrity of the games to be affected. Okay, I went further down that rabbit hole than I thought I was going to, but whatever, not like there's a lot to talk about today, it's just the trifecta. And I will start with numbers 25 to 28 on my 2020 NFL Draft Big Board. They are Josh Jones, Grant Delpit, Antoine Winfield Jr., and Yetur Gross-Matos. Jones is a weird prospect. He's a jack-of-all-trades, master of none. The thing is, he's really projectable. He's the kind of guy who you can put in there week 1, and he'll hold his own. He won't be great right away, but he won't be terrible either. Really good height-weight combination. Good zone blocker. Good footwork. He's got to work on his hands. He has short arms, which some people don't like, but, I mean, if you can set the edge, it really doesn't matter. He's not that strong, which is an issue, but he has the footwork to make up for it. Really good with leverage. Really good using his size. I think he'll be a really good player. I don't think he'll ever be great. He's got to go to the right system. If he's drafted by a team that doesn't work with him, that just leaves him to fend for himself, he will bust. But he has the potential to turn into a really good player. You just have to use him correctly. Grant Delpit is probably the best strong safety in this draft. He may be the best strong safety prospect we've had since Jamal Adams. That's how talented he is. And the reason he's so low on my big board at 26 is because, again, you can win without a good strong safety. I've said it 100 times, I'm not going to repeat it. If you watch Jamal Adams play, that's basically Grant Delpit. Now, he's not the hard hitter that Adams is, but everything else, yeah, that's Delpit. He cannot play free safety, though. That's the thing. He is limited to strong safety. Misses a lot of tackles, does not have good speed. The faster receivers in the league will blow by him. But if you use him correctly as a strong safety, he can be a Pro Bowler. Winfield is kind of a tweener at the safety position. You can put him at free safety and he'll succeed. You can put him at strong safety and he'll succeed. Not overnight, though. He's not a good tackler and he doesn't have good range. But what I really like about him is his genes. His father, Antoine Winfield, was a Pro Bowl corner. He doesn't play like his father, though. He actually plays more like T.J. Ward. The injury concerns are real with him. That's why he's lower than Delpit. I like Winfield. Can he start week 1? Yeah, he probably can. I don't think he'll be great overnight. The talent is there, though. There's no question. It's, again, you have to work on him. There are very few plug-and-play prospects in this draft. This draft is kind of top-heavy that way. There are a lot of projectable guys. Guys who can bust. A lot of high-ceiling, low-floor guys in this draft. You just gotta make sure they don't bust. You gotta coach them up. It's just that simple. Gross Matos is kind of a weird prospect. I don't know if I'd call him a jack of all trades because he's not a great athlete and he's not that strong. But he has really good instinct, really good size, reminds me a lot of Preston Smith. Just very projectable. I like how he uses his hands and feet. That's the thing. He is a future coach. I think we're going to see this guy 25 years from now as a coach in this league. Really, really smart guy, knows the game inside and out. The potential is there. You just have to work on it with him. He's not insanely fast. He's not insanely strong. It's all about technique with him. And he is a great technical pass rusher. Very similar to Preston Smith, I'm telling you. Alright, it is time for this day in sports history. On this day in 1940, John Havlicek was born. Now, last year, the day of the first round of the NFL draft, he passed away. And there were a lot of very moving tributes to him. I'm not going to go crazy in depth on his career. What I will do is just tell you a couple funny stories that I have about him. And then I'll touch on his career. The first one is that I have a friend who grew up as a Celtics fan. Not a huge Celtics fan, but a casual Celtics fan. And I asked him if he knew any of the old players like Bill Russell or John Havlicek. And he had never heard of Hondo. So I showed him the clip of him stealing Hal Greer's inbound. One of the best clips in the history of sports. It's funny. I remember watching Cheap Seats when I was younger. One of my favorite shows growing up. And instead of... It was on ESPN Classic. Instead of having a breaking news department, ESPN Classic had an old news department. And Cheap Seats showed it. Where they were going through old games to see if anything cool happened. And one of the researchers said, hey, look, Havlicek just stole the ball. And it was 40 years after the fact. Really funny. I'm not doing a good job describing it. But it was really funny. The second one is that when Hondo died, I was on the phone with my boss. And a friend of mine, actually. Very lucky to have had a boss that was also a friend of mine. He did a good job of towing that line. And we were just chatting about the draft. I don't remember if it was before or after the Giants had picked Jones. I think it was after the Jets picked Quinnen Williams. It may have been around the time that the Buccaneers picked Devin White. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I'm talking to my Boston friend, and my father chimes in, Jacob, what? John Havlicek just died. And my boss and friend is going through some things that he's telling me, and I just scream at the top of my lungs, John Havlicek died? And Anthony said, his name was Anthony. I don't know why I keep referring to him as Boston friend. I could say Anthony. Makes life a lot easier. Anthony. Anthony said, yeah, I saw that too. Really sad. I don't know too much about the old Celtics, but from what I saw, he was a hell of a player, and boy was he. To put into perspective how important John Havlicek is to the history of basketball, Mike Francesa, the day after Daniel Jones was picked by the Giants, that story dominated New York sports radio for months. Mike Francesa took time off from talking about Jones to interview Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe about Hondo. That's how important he was. Mike also said that his dog's name was Hondo, which is pretty interesting considering that Mike was from New York, and the fact that he named his dog after a Celtic when the Knicks and Celtics were rivals really says something about how great Havlicek was. This is a guy who was the first sixth man. Guys like Lou Williams and Spencer Dinwiddie would not be the players they are now without the role that John Havlicek carved out for him. And there were some people who, when he first died, didn't understand how great he was because he was a sixth man. But no, Red Auerbach did that because he wanted that X factor coming off the bench. You can't look at who starts as the metric of who the best players on the team are. It's about crunch time. And Havlicek was always in there in crunch time. You don't need to look too much further than Game 7 of the 1965 Eastern Conference Championship. Havlicek stole it! Havlicek stole the ball! It's all over! Johnny Most. One of the best calls ever. I'm sure I butchered that. Oh, man. Johnny Most, if you heard that, you must be turning over in your grave right now. Earl Strom was a referee for that game. And he wrote in his book that that was one of the greatest plays he ever saw in his 32 years as a referee. What he did was he counted down the number of seconds that Greer would need to inbound the ball, and when it got to 5, Havlicek made his jump. His instincts were off the charts. I actually have him as the 9th best player in NBA history. This is a guy who went 8-0 in the NBA Finals. 1974 Finals MVP, 13-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 8-time All-Defensive Team. Holds the record for most points by a Celtic with 26,395. Going back to his clutchness, 1968 Eastern Division Finals against the Sixers. In Game 5 with the Celtics down 3-1, Hondo nearly had a triple-double. In Game 7, same thing. He helped lead the Celtics to being the first team to overcome a 3-1 deficit. There is no question that John Havlicek is one of the most underrated players in NBA history. If he's not in your top 10, okay, fine. I can accept that. But he better be in your top 20. Maybe even top 15. May he rest in peace. Alright, it's time for another Mount Rushmore. We're going over to California now for the Los Angeles Angels. That is their name as of this moment. Not the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, not the Anaheim Angels, not the California Angels. The Los Angeles Angels. And their correct Mount Rushmore is Mike Trout, Nolan Ryan, Garrett Anderson, and Chuck Finley. Mike Trout has been the best player in baseball for years. Since probably 2014, when he won his first MVP. The one thing I'll say is there are some people that are saying that he's just as good as Mickey Mantle. He's not there yet. Mike Trout has played 9 years. By that time, Mickey Mantle already had 8 World Series appearances with 5 rings. Mike Trout has never made it out of the ALDS. He doesn't have that Trout moment. Mantle had plenty of Mantle moments by that time in his career. Cough, cough, Triple Crown. And in that ALDS in 2014, when he was the best player in baseball, he only had 1 hit in 12 at-bats. Mike Trout is not a sure thing in the playoffs. I thought the Angels could have been a playoff team going into this year. And it's still possible, but it's going to be very interesting to see how Trout does. Nolan Ryan makes this Mount Rushmore. He leads the Angels all time in strikeouts, is third in wins, 2,416 strikeouts. If he had just played with the Angels his whole career, he'd be a borderline Hall of Famer. I think that's pretty good to put Ryan at second. Garrett Anderson may have been the best player on the 02 Angels that won the World Series. I remember that team. That's the first year I remember in sports. I remember the Angels beating the Yankees and beating the Giants. I don't remember them beating the Twins, but it was funny. My grandmother knew that I was a big baseball fan, and she bought me a 2002 Angels DVD, like, right after they won. And it's like, Grandma, I don't want this. They just beat the Yankees. But I did watch it, and I do appreciate the sentiment. I've even heard some people say that Garrett Anderson should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, look, he had a really good career, but was only a 3-time All-Star. Only 2 instances of bold tight. He led the league in doubles twice. That's not a Hall of Famer. Now, 2,529 hits is really good. 2,368 of them with the Angels. He leads the Angels in hits, and runs, and doubles, and RBIs, and a bunch of other things. But he's not a Hall of Famer. He's the 3rd best player in Angels history, but he is not a Hall of Famer. Chuck Finley was the ace of a lot of Angels teams from the 1990s. 5-time All-Star, 2,610 strikeouts, 2,151 of them with the Angels. Really underrated pitcher. One of the best pitchers of the 90s. Just had the misfortune of playing on bad Angels teams. But he was a really, really good pitcher. I don't know if I'd ever say great, but really, really good. He had a really good career. Tomorrow, you're probably going to get the whole trifecta, unless there's a notable death in the sports world. You know the drill. You know how I've been doing these shows during this hiatus. It seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I know I said that yesterday, but I think it's important to stay optimistic. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying, have a Zissin Pesach.